basically everyone knows that Python is a programming language, and Python, it was created and developed in 1989, but it was made available to public for everyone use either in institute or for developing or scientific applications. It was made available in 1991. So we can say that basically official date of birth for Python is 20th 1991. And when I'm saying Python is popular programming language, why is it so? Because Python, the syntax we have for Python is similar to the English language. The syntax is very familiar that even a layman person can understand why, like what is written there in code. And even when we are trying to compare the Python with other language, if you see here, we have just a snippet for C program, and same is written in Python. The C program, you see, we have to write multiple codes, multiple keywords are used, like we have to input the standard input library, we have to declare the main, then we have to declare the data type for variables, then print statement. There are certain syntax we have for print statement also in Python, but in C. But when we are going with Python, the syntax is very similar. Even it is just like we are writing in the English language. There is no particular data type, or there is we have to define when we're assigning or declaring a variable, or even when we want to print something, the syntax is very similar. And okay, so why Python was made? There were other languages were also available when Python was introduced to public. C, C++, Java, .NET, all other languages were available. Why? But why Python become so popular? And now everybody starts using it, because every language has certain features that made it more prominent, and all those certain features were taken by Godot Ransom. That is the main trick. The person who developed the Python, he took all the good features from all other languages and applied or implemented those features in the Python. That's the reason Python became so popular. When we say that we have the functional programming, that was the main features in C, that is there and available in Python as well. When we say that OOPS concept, object oriented programming features that were there in C++, Java, that is also being implemented in the Python. And when we say that scripting language, PowerShell, Perl, Shell, those features were also implemented in Python. So we have all good features taken from all other languages, and those were implemented in Python. That's the reason Python is more competent to comparing to other languages, and it can be used for developing all the application areas wherever you want to use. You want to script something, you want to apply some mathematics functions, formulas, AI, robotics, everywhere Python can be used. So, like I was discussing, where we can use Python. Basically, you can use everywhere Python wherever you find feasible for developing the desktop applications, web applications, database applications. Like when I'm saying database applications, the same operations we are doing with SQL, MySQL, that can also be done with the Python. So we can connect to database systems, we can read and modify the tables and files. That can be done with Python as well. Then we can use software development. Scientists are also using Python, system scripting, network, data analytics, machine learning, AI. All these are the applications where you can see the uses of Python. And when I'm saying like why Python becomes so popular, it's not only the syntax, it's the features we have with Pythons. Like the first main feature is like Python is open source. There is no restriction, there is no license you need to buy or purchase when you are trying to use the Python. It is open source language, and if you find that whatever the code and source is available for Python, it is not suitable for your requirement. You can customize that code according to your requirement, and you can use it. That is the reason we have many flavors available in Python. Like JPython is available, CPython is available, Anaconda is available. These are different flavors. Everyone people took it and they customize certain features and according to their needs. And like one of the main reason that it became so popular, that it is simple and easy to learn. The syntax is very similar to English language. Like you feel like you will feel like you are just reading an English statement or you are writing an English statement. There is no art, but specific keyword or the libraries or the functions you have to define when you are writing a Python program. That's the reason it is easy to learn also. And when we Python is the platform independent language. Like there is no specific platform. It required to run a Python code. It can be run on anyone. And then again, if Python programs are written somewhere, you can just take the .py files and you can run on any platform easily. It can be migrated easily. That's the available features we have available with Python portability. And then when I'm saying Python is dynamic type, if you see this snip, uh, in C, when we are declaring a variable, we have to specifically declare the data type, like if it is going to be integer, it is going to be float or something. But in Python, that is not required. Whenever we are going to define a variable and whatever the value we are assigning to a variable, automatically it will take the data type based on the value assigned to it. So we don't need to explicitly define the data types of a variable when we are declaring in Python. And then there are certain libraries available for each, like we have NumPy, Pandas. Those are for like data frames, or we want to create a large CSV Excel files and we want to implement certain operations in Python. So there are particular libraries. Then we have SciPy for scientific uses. There are other libraries are also available, the particular which will be like responsible if you want to implement certain specific functionality of a program. And there is I just find I have been using Python since long, and I just find one limitations for the Python. It can't be used for the mobile application. Other than that, you will find Python used everywhere. Even there are big companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, these YouTube, these are also using Python in backend somewhere for their managing their files, their data. So Python is used there as well. And like I was mentioning, there are different flavors of Python are available. C Python, that is basically if we want to implement certain applications with the help of C language, so we can use C Python flavor. If we want to implement certain functionality of Java applications, then we can use J Python or Jython. If you want to implement certain with C Sharp or .NET, then Iron Python flavor is available. Same, we have other flavors of Pythons are available. Ruby Python, Anaconda Python. Okay. Now, like when we are writing a program in any of the language, so there are certain syntax. It need to be defined, or it need to be. You should take care of certain rules and regulations that is there with particular language. Like if we want to, we are using C Sharp or Java. So if we want to you want to declare a particular block of code, so you will be using semicolon or you will be using square bracket or parenthesis you will be using. And then again, if you want to, how you are going to define the comments in particular language. And like if you want to start a new line, how you are going to start a new line. Everything can't be written in one line for a particular language. All the code can't be written in one line. So if you want to go for new line, how you are going to end the previous line. So there are certain syntax. Like if I just show the one thing, if you see here, in this particular snip only, we were if this is the particular the code is going to start and it is defined in this parenthesis. So this is the way we are writing a code in C. But there is no certain syntax, like you don't have to explicitly declare parenthesis or you have to use square bracket. You just have to give some tab or spaces. That we called indentation in Python. So that's how it specify, like there is a new code or there is a new line is entered and this line is part of the previous block or the code is defined. And same if we are ending the previous line in C, we have to use the semicolon. Somewhere we have to use the colon. But in Python, that is not required. If like there is a variable defined, we are defining a variable, then we are defining b. But we are not using any comma or any semicolons or any other special characters, just to mention, just to understand the Python interpreter that there is this line is ended now and we are starting a new line. That is not required. You just have to write the content in the new line. So it will be explicitly understood by the Python interpreter that you are writing new, you are defining a new variable and you are entering into the new code. Okay. So when I was saying like indentation, why? What is the indentation? Like indentation basically is the spaces, how many spaces we have to use when we are starting a line of code, and moreover, if that particular line is part of a block, like if we are declaring if loop, while, for while, or any functions we are declaring, so we how the interpreter is going to understood like this particular line is part of the previous if block, while block, or for, or it is part of the functions, how Python is going to understand. So that's where indentations came into a picture. And just like if you see this particular example, we are mentioning here like if this there here our if block is starting, and how the interpreter is understanding that this particular print statement is part of the if block, we just used we just used few spaces. Same uh, indentation is very important when we are writing a Python code. If you will not write the indentations like in the next, we are not specifying any spaces. So Python will not understand that this print statement is part of the if block. It will simply give a syntax error. I'll show you guys how we can run it. Okay, so this is our this I'll be using the online editor for Python, executing the Python code. I'll just take the first example that I was explaining for Python indentation. Just if 5 greater than, see, this is automatic. If you just press the enter, it will automatically understand that you are trying to take or whatever you are going to write. Now this is going to be part of a block. You don't need to specifically. You can just mention print. See, here I have given the indentation. If I'm not going to give the space, I'm just going to write it and trying to execute. It will give me a syntax error, and it is syntax error easily understandable. You can see here indentation error expected and identity block. It is already saying that that's how we can understand how the error, what is the error in our program that we're trying to execute. Okay. Now comments. How we are going to define the comments in Python? Comment, and why we need to define a comment. So someone can directly write the program. They will say, I don't want to write the comments. Why I need comments are basically used for the documentations. Uh, like there are 10 or 15 developers are there in a particular team. We are working in a team, and someone modified the code, but they haven't used any comments or documentation. So if the next developer or the next person is going, if they are going to read the code, they'll not be able to understand what is the function of the particular line of code and why the changes were made. So that can we can take document that particular thing, what is the uses of that particular line of code and why the changes were made with the help of the comments. Like comments can be used for documentation to explain the purpose of the line of the code, why this particular line is needed, and if a layman person is also going to read the code, they can they can try to correlate with the comments written in the documentations. Why, what this particular line of code will do if they try to execute it. And when comments can also be used when we are just developing our applications or the codes, but we are not finalized like this is going to be our final code. We are just in the testing phase. So whenever we are editing something or making some changes or modifications in our code, so we can define like this modifications was done for this particular reason. So that can also be documented with the help of comments. Now there are different ways available for creating the comments also. When we have to create a comment in Python, we can simply use this hash symbol. If anything is preceded by this hash symbol, it means it is a comment. Python will directly ignore that particular line. It will just proceed for the next line. And comments can be placed. It's not like that, if we are writing something and the comment is placed on in the starting on the line only. It can be placed at the end of the line. Like we are defining a code and we can place the comment at the end of the line. Just like in this example, if you see here, we have defined the comment in the starting of the line and then we have written our print statement. And in the next example, if you see here, we have written our print statement first, then we are defining the comment. This is the comment. And whenever Python sees this hash symbol, either in the starting of a line or either at in the middle of line, rest of the part of the particular statement will be ignored. Python will not execute it. It will be understood by Python. So this is one line comment, but there are a lot of things you want to mention, you want to document in your code, you want to use and it's taking multiple lines. It's not just one liner comment. So there are two ways you are available when you are defining multi-line comment. So either you can put this hash symbol in the beginning of each line. So Python will consider it as a comment. Or you can use the double quotes, triple quotes, and then write your lines. Like just how these quotes are placed and you don't need to place the quote at the starting of each line. You can just place in the starting of your comment and it's going to take a least like just a paragraph is there. Once the paragraph is ended, you can end your quote symbol. So Python will understood like yeah, it's a multi-line comment and it will ignore that value. But how Python is going to consider like it's a multi-line comment because this particular double quotes or triple quotes are defined on in the starting of the first line only. For second line and third line, there are no quotes defined. So if there is a string you are assigning, you are writing somewhere in your Python code, and it's not assigned to a variable, so Python will understand it as a comment.